Hi everybody, welcome back. We're going to be reading Tangerine by Edward Bloor today. We are picking up on page 155 on the section that is Wednesday, October 4th. Let's begin. Wednesday, October 4th. I typed these journal entries and my homework assignments on the little PC clone up in my bedroom. For anything major, like a school report, I use Dad's big IBM, which is down in an alcove off the great room. Dad has a CD-ROM encyclopedia, a fax modem, and a web navigator that gets hundreds of information services. I can find out anything about anything without ever leaving the chair. Tonight I was down in the alcove searching for information on tangerines when Mom announced, "I've got people coming over tonight, Paul. You might want to work upstairs." "Who's coming?" "It's a meeting of the Homeowners Association. I think it's going to be a loud one." "Why is that?" "Mr. Costello has been getting a lot of phone calls about a lot of different things. There's the termite problem, and there have been break-ins over on his side of the development." "Robberies?" "Yes. People are talking about organizing a neighborhood watch patrol, or even hiring a real guard to sit in the guardhouse." She stopped and looked at me. "You haven't heard anything about break-ins, have you? Are kids involved?" "I haven't heard anything." "Joey hasn't said anything to you?" "No." The doorbell rang. I went back to my search as the homeowners started to arrive. I could hear them file in behind me. The yellow Tudor, the York with the 3-car garage, and a loud group from Joey Street, the street where all the houses are getting blue tents put over them. I stopped working when Mr. Costello came in. I rolled my chair to the entrance of the alcove so he could see me. "Hi, Paul. How's it going?" "Fine, Mr. Costello." Mr. Costello's face looked lined and tired ever since Mike got killed. He carried a thick black appointment book in one hand. He walked to the kitchen end of the great room and said quietly, "All right, let's get started." The meeting began like the town meetings we used to have in social science class. Treasurer's report, old business, new business, I move, I second the motion. I had turned my attention back to the computer screen when I heard a man call out, "What's with Donnelly's house? It looks like something that landed from outer space." I rolled my chair back and watched Mr. Costello. He checked his notes and said, "All right, Mr. Donnelly applied for permission to install a lightning rod on the roof of his house. The architectural committee, because of his unique problem, did approve that addition. But then, for some reason, Mr. Donnelly went and installed a series of 10 lightning rods across the top of his roof. It does look odd. It looks like hell." Mom spoke up. "The architectural committee has sent Mr. Donnelly a strongly worded letter about it. I think he clearly took advantage of us." "What are you going to do about it?" "As I just said, we sent him a letter. I had hoped he would show up tonight so we could work this out. If he doesn't respond, we will take further action." Another homeowner stood up. "I've been keeping track of our fish population, what there is of it, and I'd like to announce that it is now down to 0. As far as I can tell, we have 0 fish left in the pond." Mr. Costello nodded grimly and flipped to another page. "You're probably right, Ralph. The koi appear to be all gone. We're not sure why, but we think someone may have stolen them." I thought, "Think again, Mr. Costello. Your koi are a gourmet meal for the ospreys out on Route 89. Another voice called out, "What about the muck fire?" Mr. Costello knew right where to flip for this one. "All right, we've certainly heard your complaints about the muck fire, and we certainly share your distaste for it. Since our last meeting, Mr. Porter and I have contacted the Tangerine Fire Department on 3 different occasions." Mr. Costello began to read directly from his notes. "The captain there basically told us he can't do anything about it. We said, 'Why don't you pour water on it until it goes out?' And he said, 'Why don't you?' So we did." Mr. Costello slammed his book closed with one hand. "We hired a contractor to sink 4 wells in the muck fire field. We rented pumps and spraying equipment and started saturating the area last month. To make a long story short, the muck fire is still burning, and now we have swarms of mosquitoes breeding in the swamp that we created out there." I heard Mom speak up again. "These mosquitoes carry encephalitis. 2 children died in Tangerine last year after they were bitten by mosquitoes." Mr. Costello nodded gravely. "Right. We have already contacted the county about it. They have a spray truck that is for hire. Starting tomorrow night, they will drive through our development spraying a cloud of insecticide every other evening until the mosquito problem is under control. Do not, I repeat, do not allow your kids to ride their bikes behind the spray truck. They'll be inhaling powerful pesticides. Also, you should keep your pets inside, and you should move any delicate plants from your porches, patios, or whatever into the house." Everyone got quiet at the thought of the spray truck spewing insecticide every other night. Finally, the man who had asked about Mr. Donnelly's house said, "Okay, what about all the robberies?" Mr. Costello opened his book once again and addressed the man. The sheriff's department has assigned someone to our case, Sergeant Edwards. He looked at the rest of the homeowners. For those of you who don't know, 5 of the houses that were tented for bugs have been robbed of jewelry, watches, and other valuables. The man interrupted. My lawyer tells me that the exterminator is required by law to either post a guard or to arrange for guards to patrol around the houses that are tented. That may be true, Dan, but our local guy says he was not aware of that law. He should have been. It's his business. Maybe so, but I've talked to the guy and his attitude is that you'd have to be crazy to go into a house that's been pumped full of deadly poison. Therefore, there's no real threat of anyone doing it. But somebody is doing it. Somebody busted in my patio doors with a baseball bat, too. And whether his attitude likes it or not, he's liable for that and for my missing property. Mr. Costello turned his palms upward. He answered patiently. If you think you have a case against him, then by all means, pursue it. But is it really worth your time and money to hire a lawyer and go to court just to take some guy's dilapidated pickup truck away? Because that's what it'll come down to. That's just the way it is around here. The homeowners just sat there glumly until Mr. Costello said, Okay, somebody move to adjourn. I turned back to the computer as the meeting broke up. I took out the disk and got into Dad's personal library, looking for another information service. I saw a file listing that had definitely not been there before. I would never have missed seeing this. Eric, scholarship offers. I looked around for Dad. He and Mom were busy saying goodbye to people in the foyer, so I clicked on Eric, scholarship offers. The file was 2 pages long. It was carefully designed, like someone had spent a lot of time thinking about it. Each page was filled with rectangular boxes stacked on top of each other. But get this. The boxes were light green football fields with white grid lines at 10-yard intervals. Over the green and white fields, printed in red, were vital statistics. Each box contained the name of a university, its address and phone number, and the name of its head football coach. The top 3 boxes on page 1 were set up for the University of Florida, Florida State University, and the University of Miami. Ohio State had a box on page 1, so did Notre Dame, Penn State, and the University of Nebraska. It didn't look like any of these schools had expressed any interest in Eric, not yet. I scrolled to page 2 and found some had. Rice University, Baylor University, and the University of Houston had sent letters to Eric. From the dates of these letters, they must have all contacted him at the same time, right after his junior year season in Houston. Dad apparently had not written back to any of them. I heard the front door close, so I quickly clicked out of the file. But I'll be back. Thursday, October 5th. Joey didn't come to school today. I wasn't surprised. I know exactly where he was. He was in the office at Lake Windsor Middle School, re-enrolling. It's the right thing for him to do. It's the right place for him to be. I never should have talked Joey into coming to Tangerine. He doesn't fit in here. I should have seen that. Joey is not me. Joey fits in with his family. He fits in with his friends. He fits in with Lake Windsor Downs. And that's where he belongs. That's where he is now, and that's all there is to say about it. Right before class began, I went up to Teresa and handed her 6 pages of research. She seemed pleasantly surprised. I said, So what's up with Tino? She said, Not much, and started to look at my papers. Does the coach know that he got suspended? Yeah, I guess so. Everybody else knows. Is he going to miss tomorrow's game? No, he's coming back tomorrow. Yeah, I heard he got 3 days. Louise went in and talked to Dr. Johnson. She said that since Tino didn't actually hit anybody, she'd reduce his time out to 1 day. Oh, that's cool. Teresa stopped thumbing through my report. She looked me right in the eye, like she never had before. Yeah, look, Paul Fisher, you gotta understand one thing. You can't come in here and start talking about Louise any way you like. Louise means too much to us. I nodded quickly. Yeah, I understand. Tino and Victor, they don't play that kind of stuff. I told them last night that they should leave you alone, but you better tell your friend to keep out of their way. I thought about that. I don't think he goes to school here anymore, and I don't think he counts me as a friend. Not anymore. Well, I don't know anything about that. I'm just telling you what I'm telling you. She pulled a piece of white paper out of her pocket. Here, this is a map to our house. Henry's coming over after practice to meet Luis. If you want to meet him, you can come too. I stared at the map and at the large black X marking their house. As coolly as I could, I said, So, what about Tino? What do you mean? He won't be mad if I come? No, why should he? I shrugged. You know, that stuff with Joey. You're not Joey, are you? No, but is he mad about getting suspended? You're not the one who got him suspended, are you? I shook my head and said, No, but I thought to myself, not this time, anyway. I went over to talk to Henry D., and we wound up working out a great plan. Henry's brother was going to drive him from Tangerine Middle School to Teresa's house, come back to get him, and then drive over to Lake Windsor Downs to do a job. Henry said that he and his brother would be pleased to drop me off right at my door. I called Mom and explained the plan. She sounded doubtful, but she agreed to let me do it. At practice, the coach put me in at Tino's position. I played poorly, but nobody seemed to care. It was just temporary. Tino would be back tomorrow. After practice, I followed Henry D. to the parking lot. We walked up to a small blue pickup truck and climbed in. Henry said, "This is Paul. This is my brother Wayne." Wayne Dilks! I knew him right away. The fireman, the young guy who had come to our house after the muck fire. He gave me a friendly hi, but I don't think he recognized me. Anyway, he didn't say anything as we drove east toward the groves, listening to a country music station. Soon we were flying past perfect rows of citrus trees, and that glorious scent was in the air. I saw a large wooden sign that said Tomas Cruz Groves and Nursery. Wayne slowed to 5 miles per hour and turned right onto a dirt road. We bumped along past an oblong pond 50 yards across, ringed all around with tall cattails. Behind the pond, on higher ground, was a grove of trees, hundreds of them, all about 10 feet high and 6 feet wide. Water sprinklers rose tall among the green trees like skinny metal weeds. We bumped to the left toward several buildings, a house, a separate garage, a small shed, and another strange-looking building. The house was large, 2 stories high, with old shade trees around it. It appeared to be built of cement blocks covered with a kind of mustard-colored stucco. We rolled in a cloud of dust past the house, pulled up next to the classic green Ford, and climbed out in the front of the other building. Wayne said, "I'll see y'all in an hour," and backed out, leaving us standing before one of the strangest structures I had ever seen. It looked like a gigantic tin can that had been cut in half lengthwise and then pressed down into the ground. I asked Henry, "What is that thing?" "It's a Quonset hut. They had a lot of them left over after World War II. Some of the citrus farmers bought them cheap and as war surplus." "Yeah? Did you find that out in your research?" "Yes, I did." Henry knocked on the wooden door of the Quonset hut. I looked up and figured that the door was 6 feet tall, and the hut was 12 feet tall at its highest point. At its lowest points, the ends stuck right into the ground. Tina opened the door and said, "Yo, Henry D." Then he turned back inside without acknowledging me. I followed Henry and Tino to the far end of the Quonset hut, about 20 yards down through the cool, dark, windowless building. The sides where the metal ceiling curved down to the cement floor were jammed with wooden crates, sprinkler heads, wheelbarrows, and all kinds of equipment. We joined Teresa and Luis at the rear door. Teresa pointed at us and said to him, "That one's Henry D. That other one is Paul Fisher." Luis smiled. He had large teeth inside a large head. He had a strange shape, too, bony and muscular at the same time. His arms, his legs, his whole body were thick like rope. Luis said, "Good to see you guys." His voice was soft and seemed accented more than Tino's or Teresa's. He walked ahead of us limping as if his left knee would not bend. He led us out of the Quonset hut toward the weather-beaten trees on a hill north of the house. Luis stopped about 5 rows in, pointed around him, and said, "This is a grove. We grow a fruit here called the Cleopatra Tangerine, and we sell it to citrus packers and juice companies. Our family has done that for 45 years now." Luis doubled back and we followed. We turned left at the hut and soon came to an open space as long as a soccer field, but square in shape. Here the trees were like babies, only 1.5 feet high and spaced not more than a foot apart. There must have been thousands of them. Luis sat down next to one of the baby trees, so we all copied him. He said, "Look around you. This is a nursery. The purpose of a nursery is not to grow fruit, it is to grow trees. We then sell the trees to the fruit growers." Luis placed a long finger at the base of the baby tree. "This part of the tree is called the rootstock. It is the root and trunk of a rough lemon tree. Believe it or not, every type of tree that we produce here begins its life as a rough lemon tree." His finger rose 6 inches to the knobby beginning of a branch. "At this spot, we cut a slit in through the rough lemon tree, set a new type of bud inside, and closed the slit up with tape. Now we have turned the tree into something else, perhaps a Valencia orange tree or a ruby red grapefruit tree. The new bud that we grafted onto the rootstock is called a scion. The word scion means like a child, or a descendant of the tree." Luis pointed his arm back to the tall trees. "Check this out. A scion can be any kind of citrus that you want. Orange, grapefruit, lemon, lime, and they can all be growing on the same tree at the same time. That means that on one little tree, you could have a bunch of white grapefruit, a branch of red kumquats, and a branch of green limes, like some kind of Frankenstein fruit tree, all stitched together." He caressed the trunk of the baby tree. The rough lemon is totally worthless in the supermarket, and yet there is no more valuable tree out here in the nursery. Luis got to his feet, flushed with feeling. He pointed to the 1,000 baby trees before us. If you look out here, you'll see that all of these trees are the same. On each, there is one scion grafted onto a rough lemon rootstock. That scion is a new type of tangerine called the Golden Dawn. Luis stared with us at the field that he had created. Then he turned and led us back through the rows of adult trees. He pointed out different types of citrus trees, including some Frankenstein experiments of his own. He answered many questions for our report. All too quickly, we were back at the Quonset hut. Henry D. looked out the door and announced, "Wayne's waiting." I walked up to Luis and offered my hand to shake. He took it in a powerful rope-like grip. I said, "Thank you. I am really interested in this stuff." He answered, "Then you should come out again." I said, "I'd definitely like to." I turned toward Teresa and Tino. "See you guys later." Teresa waved. Tino acted like he didn't hear. I followed Henry D. through the door and then stopped short. There, attached to the back of Wayne's pickup truck, was a short trailer. It had a fat, heavy generator mounted on it, with a large fan and a spray nozzle on either side. I said, "What on earth is that?" Wayne answered cheerfully, "It's a sprayer for y'all's mosquitoes." We bumped along with the sprayer behind us all the way to Lake Windsor Downs. As soon as we turned into the entrance, Wayne spotted the blue tents along Joey Street. "Look at that now," he said. "Y'all are having a regular 10 plagues of Egypt over here, aren't ya?" "Yeah," I said, 10 and counting." "How many houses got termites?" "It looks like that whole street has them, all along the west side." "Then that's where they buried the citrus trees," he said. "This was a grove, you know." "Yeah, so I've heard." "It was all groves around here. When they cleared this land for houses, they just set fire to all the trees and plowed them under. You see how that whole blue tent street seems to be on a hill?" "Yeah." "That hill's made of dead trees. Dead tangerine trees. Termites live in all that wood under the ground, but they got to come up to the surface to get water. That's where your problems start. If the wood in your house is in their way, they start eating that." I said, "You can stop them though, right? You can kill them? You can call the Orkin army or something?" Wayne shook his head. "You can't stop them. You can put a barrier around your house. That's about it. But you can't stop them from eating wood any more than you can stop that muck fire from burning or them mosquitoes from sucking blood." We were at the house. I said, "Here it is." I got out and looked at the spraying rig. "You guys gonna turn this thing on now?" Wayne smiled. "Yep, we're gonna let her rip. We'll kill some of them skeeters for you anyway." I said, "Thanks for the ride, Wayne. See ya, Henry." Wayne waved. He reached under his seat and handed something to Henry. Then, in the same motion, they both pulled black rubber gas masks on over their faces. They sat there for a minute, looking like a pair of ant-men who had stolen a truck. Then Wayne got out, walked back, and pulled the starter cord on the generator. I watched as the rig coughed and sputtered to life. Then I backed away and hurried inside. I dropped my stuff in the alcove and went into the kitchen for a drink. Out of the corner of my eye, I detected 2 people in motion, and I heard the foomp, foomp, foomp sound. I knew that Eric and Arthur were practicing in the back. Would they stop when they smelled the insecticide? I got a soda and stood at the breakfast bar, waiting to see what they'd do. I saw a billowing white cloud enter the backyard like an angel of death. It came from the right to the left in white waves and quickly filled up the whole yard. But as I watched this scene, it happened again, just like in Houston, just like at the Gray Wall. A feeling came over me, overpowering me, like I had to remember something, whether I wanted it to or not. I stared hard into the backyard. First I could see Eric and Arthur, and then I couldn't see them. Then I could see them, then I couldn't. And then I remembered. I stared hard into the backyard. First I could see Eric. Our backyard in Huntsville. Mom and Dad were standing in front of me. Dad was directing Eric to move in a circle, around and behind me. Dad was saying, "Okay, Eric, pretend that Paul is in the center of an imaginary clock and that I am standing here at the 6 o'clock position. I want you to stand at the 12 o'clock position, right behind him." "Good. Now move to the 11 o'clock position." Then he said to me, "Paul, can you see Eric?" I said, "No, I can't see him." "Okay, Eric, move to 10 o'clock. Paul, can you see him?" "No, I can't see him." "Move to 9 o'clock. I can't see him. I can't see him." Mom broke in. "It's okay, honey. It's okay," she said to Dad. "There, I told you. The problem is with his peripheral vision." Suddenly, I felt the hot breath of a predator on my neck. I screamed in terror. Eric laughed and ran over to Mom and Dad. He had snuck up on me from behind and somewhere back around 10 o'clock. Dad snapped at him. Eric, cut that out. Are you here to help us or not? I remember that I started to cry in the middle of that pretend clock, but Mom and Dad didn't notice. They were arguing about my eyes or about my glasses. Mom finally said, well, it won't hurt to try, will it? I'm taking him back there tomorrow to see what they can do. And she did. That's when I got my new glasses. That was when I started to see better. From that day on, I could see things they could not. I could see Eric posing in front of them in the shining light of the football dream, and I could see Eric lurking behind me in the shadows of the clock. Thursday, November 2nd. I used to be aware of every hour and every day, but now with soccer games and football games in school and cross-curricular projects, whole chunks of time fly by and I'm amazed at what hour it is. Sometimes I'm amazed at what day it is. The last 4 weeks have been like that. They have gone by in a blur, and it's not just me. Each member of our family is now so busy that we don't even eat meals together anymore. But I'm not complaining. I guess none of us are. We're all doing what we expected to do in Tangerine. We're all becoming big fish in this little pond. Dad is now firmly in command as the director of civil engineering for Tangerine County. Old Charlie Burns didn't survive the avalanche of bad publicity, lawsuits, and criminal charges being hurled at him. He died of a heart attack in his lawyer's office. Dad didn't even go to his funeral. Mom is now the head of the architectural committee, a block captain for the neighborhood watch patrol, and the person most likely to succeed Mr. Costello as president of the homeowners association. No surprises there. Mom knows what she wants for Lake Windsor Downs. What of the news in football? Well, Eric Fisher's fortunes have changed. Big time. In 4 weeks, he has gone from local joke to local hero as the place kicker for the Lake Windsor High Seagulls. He is now always surrounded by kids who, I suppose, look up to him. I guess people see what they want to see. Eric kicked a field goal of 12 and 25 yards in a 20-0 win over Crystal River. Then he made one from 37 yards to win the Gulf County game 10-7. The following week, he was on the front page of the Tangerine Times sports section for making kicks of 40 and 45 yards to beat Flagler 6-0. Yesterday he missed from 50 yards, but he hit from 30 and 38 in a 20-14 win over Suwannee. Everyone in Tangerine County knows him now, or they think they do. And what about the other member of the family? The other athlete in the family? The Tangerine Middle School War Eagles have won 7 games in a row, and I have played in all 7 games. I even started 2 games at fullback after Chandra collided with Dolly in practice and wrenched Dolly's back. I played all 90 minutes. In the other 5 games, I went in as a sub for either Victor or Maya in the second half. By then, we already had enough goals to beat most of our opponents. 10-0 over St. Anthony's, 8-0 over Heritage Baptist, 3-0 over De Leon, 4-0 over Seminole, 7-0 over Highland Park, 4-0 over Cortez, and 7-0 over Palmetto in our rematch on our home field. Those are the statistics of this soccer season, but I have to describe the feeling that this has given me. It's not enough to say that we have won 7 soccer games in a row. It's how we've done it that is so extraordinary. The War Eagles have set out on a bloody rampage throughout the county. We have destroyed every enemy. We have laid waste to their fields and their fans. There is fear in their eyes when we come charging off our bus, whooping our war cry. They are beaten by their own fear before the game even begins. This is a feeling that I have never known before. Anyway, I've never known it from this side of the fear. Maybe I'm just a sub. Maybe I am just along for the ride, but this is the greatest thing that has ever happened to me. Saturday, November 4th. Back in October, when we all visited the Tangerine nursery, Luis definitely said to me, "You should come again." I think he meant it. I know I meant it when I said that I wanted to. But since that day, Teresa and Tino have held all of our project meetings in class. Anyway, I decided to take charge of the situation. I wanted to go back to the nursery, and so I did. Mom drove me through Tangerine on a sleepy Saturday morning. I had no problem remembering the way. Out through the groves, down the long driveway, past the house, to the Quonset hut. She said, "Are you sure these people are expecting you?" "Yeah." "What kind of building is that?" "It's called a Quonset hut." "Is it safe?" "Mom, it was built by the Army. It'll withstand a direct hit by a 20-megaton bomb." "What goes on in there? Is that their office?" It's more like Dr. Frankenstein's laboratory." "Please, Paul, give me a break. I'm worried about you out here." "Mom, it's a citrus tree nursery. The worst thing that could happen to me is I'll overdose on vitamin C." Just don't touch anything rusty. You haven't had your booster shot. Okay. What time should I come back? I'll call you. All right, be careful. Mom pulled away. I walked up to the door of the Quonset hut and knocked. There was no answer. Then, from behind me, I heard, Fisherman, what are you doing here? It wasn't a friendly greeting. I turned and saw Tino and Luis coming out of the house with coils of thin black hose wrapped around their shoulders, like bandolera ammo belts. Tino and I get along okay on the soccer team, as long as I know my place and stay in it. But he has little use for me away from the team, and he has no use for me at all in science class. I swallowed and said, I wanted to find out more about the nursery. Luis said to come back sometime, so I did. What, you don't have phones in Lake Windsor Downs? Luis said, It's all right, Tino. I invited him to come back, and he's come. He pointed to a pile of black hoses on the ground. You can grab some of those and work with us. I wrapped a bandolera of hose around my shoulder and followed them. We walked around the Quonset hut, through the rows of adult trees and out to the baby trees, the Golden Dawn tangerines. We laid out all of Luis's hose, then all of Tino's, then all of mine, up and down the rows of little trees. Then we went back and loaded up again from the pile. We continued to haul and lay out hoses for 3 hours, until every row had a black rubber stripe running down it. We walked back again through the adult grove, but this time Tino sat down in a crate between 2 large trees. Luis pointed to 2 more crates which I had hauled between the trees for us to sit on. He reached up, pulled off a tangerine, and tossed it to Tino. Then he tossed one to me. We all sucked them down hungrily, and Luis pulled down 3 more. I hadn't said a word for hours until Luis asked me, So, how do you like the tangerine business? I like it a lot. Tino snorted. Is that right? What do you like about it? I knew the answer to that right away. The way it smells. I like how it smells out here. I held up my tangerine. I guess I like how these taste, too. Luis smiled. I asked him, What's the best thing about it for you? Luis stood up to get us 3 more. When he sat down, he answered, Just like you said. The way it smells out here. That scent, it's like nothing else in the world. Luis looked at me intensely, but he spoke softly, almost musically, almost tearfully. You know, I walk out here in the mornings sometimes, and I fall on my knees, and I weep right into the ground. I am overcome by the beauty of it all. I've tried to describe that scent, all around in the air. I've tried to give it a name, but the closest I can come is, it's the scent of a golden dawn. Luis looked away. Tino was staring at him with reverence, with no trace of the hard guy face he usually carries around. We rested for 5 more minutes, and then went back to the baby trees. Luis gave each of us a small, sharp hand clipper, which he called a tangerine clipper. We proceeded to crawl up and down the rows, slicing a hole in the black hose next to each tree. It was back-breaking, knee-scraping, glasses-fogging work. I could feel the sun doing damage to the back of my neck and to the backs of my legs. We didn't break again until we had sliced 1,000 holes in 1,000 spots. Then we sprawled out again, between the trees with our tangerines. Luis and Tino were hot and tired, but I was more like in critical condition. Luis said, I think that's all for you today. Tino added, Yeah, Fisherman, you don't look too good. You look a little like a lobster special. Luis pointed at the Quonset hut. Take him inside, Tino. Get him some of that first aid spray. Tino actually took my arm, helped me up, and guided me into the hut. He found a purple aerosol can, shook it, and said, Close your eyes. He sprayed a cold white foam on the back of my neck, my arms, and my knees. I sat carefully on the top of the desk and said, Thanks. Can I use this telephone? Yeah, go ahead. Mom answered on the phone after the first ring. I said, Mom, I'm ready to be picked up. Are you all right, Paul? Yeah. You sound hurt. No. I'll be there in 15 minutes. I hung up and said to Tino, So where's Teresa today? She's out with our daddy. She's helping him fill out some paperwork at the county building. Oh, yeah? Yeah, she's getting more into that now. She's learning how to run the family business. Tina paused. You know, I was thinking. Teresa is real busy with that stuff, so maybe you should do the final report for the science group, you know, on a computer. He nodded like he was agreeing with himself. Teresa thinks so, too. In fact, it's her idea. Sure, I can do that. I waited for Tino to look at me. We could have a project meeting at my house if you like. I can show you the types of graphics that we have on my dad's computer, you know, pie charts and stuff. We could design the whole thing. Yeah, well, let me talk to Teresa about that. I slid off the desk and started to walk awkwardly toward the front door. I felt like my skin was too tight for my body. Tina laughed. That's hard work, huh? Yeah, I don't know how people can work out in the sun all day. I wouldn't make it as a fruit picker. I'd be dead. Tino nodded. Yeah, well, you do what you gotta do. I never did that because I never had to. He started to follow me down the length of the hut. My daddy had to. Luis did it too, but he did it because he wanted to. He used to beg to go on trips with Daddy and Tio Carlos. He picked oranges down in Orlando. He picked tangerines over on Merritt Island, and that's how his knee got messed up. I opened the front door enough to look out for Mom. Tino went on, You don't pick tangerines, you clip them with one of those clippers. Luis was doing that when he fell out of a tree. He was 12 years old back then. He landed on his kneecap and cracked it, and stabbed himself in the hand with the clippers. Daddy picked him up and drove him to the hospital. They bandaged up his hand, right? But Luis didn't say anything about his knee because it wasn't looking too bad, and he was afraid that our mama wouldn't let him go along to pick any more. The next morning, his knee looked like a soccer ball. He had messed up his cartilage so bad that they had to operate. They had to put a pin in there, too. He couldn't walk at all for about 2 months, and he was right about Mama. Mama told him he could never go out picking again. Tino nodded, slowly remembering. Anyway, after Mama died, Luis couldn't go anywhere. He had to stay home with Teresa and me. Tino pushed past me through the door. I followed him outside. He said, It worked out okay for Luis, though. He became a genius at horticulture. There's nobody better in Florida. I waited to see if that was all he had to say, and it wasn't. Luis played soccer, too, you know. At Tangerine Middle School. At the high school, too. No kidding. Yeah, he was good. We used to go watch him. What position did he play? Tino looked surprised at that question. What else could he play? He was the goalie. The goalie? Yeah, they put him in there because he was handicapped. I looked at Tino to see if he was mocking me. He wasn't. He was just making conversation. He was in the nicest mood that I had ever seen him in. I figured it was my chance to clear my conscience once and for all, and I said, Hey, do you remember when you guys got busted at the carnival? Yeah, what about it? Well, I'm the one who ratted you out. They accused some of the Lake Windsor soccer players of wrecking that exhibit, the Axeman, and I'm the one who told them that it was the Tangerine Middle School soccer players. Tino nodded slowly. Then he said, Turn around. What? Turn around. Look over there. I turned around and looked out toward the house. Suddenly, I felt a swift kick in my backside. It made me hop forward about a foot. I turned back and looked at Tino. He had a sly smile on his face. He said, If any of your Lake Windsor homeboys ever ask you what happened when I found out, you tell them about that. Mom's car appeared around the corner. She drove through the shade of the house into the sunlight and up to where we were standing. She waved to Tino as I climbed in. Tino returned her wave and then walked around the Quonset hut to go back to work.